This is the Mike LiPetri Show. So excited to have you. Mike Lollo, a Chief Strategy Officer from the National Kidney Registry and someone who has been over 20 years in the NYPD, now a retired detective, someone who's part of the Intelligence Bureau protecting foreign and domestic diplomats against terroristic plots, which, by the way, sounds super cool.
It does, right?
It does.
It looks great on a resume.
Looks great on a resume. I mean, just that line alone. Served over 20 years in the NYPD as a detective in the Intelligence Bureau protecting foreign domestic diplomats against terroristic plots. What was that like, buddy?
That was pretty cool.
It was.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was like in a detail within a detail. It was.
Yeah.
It was. I just kind of like stumbled into it, so to speak, and it was just myself, two other guys, and a sergeant that kind of like ran it. You know, we had a lieutenant and all that other stuff, but we planned all the dignitary visits that came to the city. So for anyone listening, if you used to go to the city around September for that thing called UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, that's my office like quarterbacked that and put that together. So I apologize for all the traffic that
which is extremely stressful. No, I mean the amount of coordination you have to have among federal agencies and not only and then state and then local as well with yourself.
Sure.
I mean, what was that? How long did that go into the process, like the planning?
Months before. But you know, it's teamwork. So obviously, my office didn't do the whole thing, but all the information came into our office, and then we would go out there and get whether it's traffic, the bomb squad. We coordinate with the Secret Service, the State Department. But you know, at a big UN, you had 190 something countries coming in. You know, we had like 6 or 7, high threat hotels that had to be covered. All those dignitaries had motorcades. So all these people are tooling around the city. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know how all the time and effort that goes into all that.
A lot.
Amazing. Yeah,
it's three for us in the office. It was 3 weeks straight of 5 in the morning to 5 at night.
Yeah,
and it's 7 days a week. You know, it doesn't stop.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And what were some of the foreign and domestic diplomats that you were attending to or watching
so cool.
over?
Yeah, so most of them were from the Secret Service. As far as like for myself, if it was like a medium or a high threat level type of dignitary, then I would go out with my sergeant and a couple other people. And you get to walk, you're walking around, whether it's with the President of the United States, whether it's with the Pope, prime ministers. And I got to see so much cool stuff. You get to see behind the scenes and you get to see them in front. It's an awesome experience. A lot of pictures. If you're into pictures,
your home must be just riddled with like photos. Like there's me with the ambassador. There's me with the congressman.
No. My wife wouldn't let me put them on the wall. So they're all in my office in Connecticut, which is where the National Kidney Registry's office is.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I have them all. That's the only
Just
place
riddled.
I could display them. So I have them all over in my office.
Oh, gotta see that.
That's pretty cool.
Maybe one day, like April Fool's next year, you just take all of them and just put them throughout the entire house, like hundreds of pictures. And I would love to see. That would be funny.
There's a couple of pictures that's funny, and it doesn't matter what your political preference is, but I have like the Dalai Lama. I have a picture with the Pope. I have a picture with like Cardinal Dolan.
Yeah.
And then there's Trump. And then there's there's Pence. And then there's Obama.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you have all these pictures? Like I said, you're a Trump fan or not, but it's like the Dalai Lama, the Pope, and then
Trump, Obama. Like, gotta love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Those are experiences. But see what I mean? That's
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just people don't even realize, like specifically on Long Island, where how many people who have experiences or just their careers of who you had the opportunity just to meet. And from yourself, you, as I said, 21 years you've been in the force, and the first 10 years, you're working patrol, you're teaching other officers in the academy, and then you find yourself just kind of. It's amazing how life takes you.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it really is, and that's what I think people are. You create amazing stories from our neighbors, our community members all around us, our friends, where who you run into is just like wow. And I remember with yourself, with not only now with that story of how you progressed as a detective in the NYPD, and who you met, who you protected, not only just the civilians of the city of New York, but then all these foreign and domestic dignitaries. And then now to add to it is towards that end of your career, you then become inspired as a kidney donor yourself. That really launched you into your next career, which as the CSO of this organization that does so much for people, not only locally but then nationally as well, to saving lives. I mean, do you think your background as an officer, where you were charged, you gave an oath to protect civilians around you and save others, did that motivate you to then now become a kidney donor yourself?
That's a good question.
I wonder that,
in my experience, obviously not all donors, but there is something to say about people who are in the service industry, right? And law enforcement is definitely in the service industry who have this inclination to, want to help. So did that like subconsciously affect me? It's possible. I do credit my wife with my kidney donation because I think. What's
her name?
Megan.
Megan, we gotta give you a shout out, Megan.
Absolutely. If you surround yourself with good people, right, and kind people, I really do think kindness is contagious. I'm hoping that someone's gonna watch this or hear this, and at the end they're gonna go, you know what? If that guy could donate his kidney, then maybe maybe I could do it too. So, Megan is such a good person. I say that if I didn't meet her, I don't know if I would have been as receptive to possibly donating or just making the decision to donate when I did. And I really believe that. So
how long have you been married?
Oh my gosh. Now it's 12. What do we got married 16 years?
16
years. I
think
it's 16 now.
16 years.
Yeah. Hopefully I didn't do the math wrong.
Yeah, it's all right. Megan will forgive you. It's fine.
I hope so.
Yeah, but it's 16 years. I mean, think about that, how your life changes. So we were just talking about now the story of you as an NYPD detective, how your life evolved. Then throughout that, you meet your wife, right?
Yeah.
And then as you two have grown and each of you have built on each other in the most loving but also charitable ways. And then now for you as a detective, then now leading into this, and for the listeners and the viewers, I think it's incredible is how you even were motivated. Not only from being influenced of that charity work from your wife, but then on top of it, just seeing a billboard. So can you walk through?
Sure.
So the big thing is because there's this wonderful article about this gentleman, and I'm going to do it from this perspective, and I want to have it from your perspective because when you have this gentleman whose name is Mark Weiner, and he was in need of a kidney, and he was trying to figure out how to get the word out there, how to find a donor.
Right.
And through his efforts and his hard efforts, he ends up creating a billboard in the middle of Times Square.
That's right.
Saying, "My name is Mark. I need a kidney. You can help." And he has a website that said helpmarkfindakidney.com. Yep. And during that time, he had tons of Americans from all over the country.
1,800 people clicked the link.
1,800 people.
It's the largest. Still to this day, we actually talked about it today at a meeting at my office. It's the largest number of registrants for like any single person that has been in the National Kidney Registry that was looking for a donor.
Right. And that to me was just something. So now you as an NYPD detective, this was back in 2018?
Yep.
2018. You see this. Now that's from Mark's perspective now where he's looking, and he eventually did find that donor, right?
Yeah, so the end of Mark's story, which is kind of awesome, is he didn't find a donor from that billboard. 2 years later, I wanted to try and create some awareness. So Mark and I went back to Times Square. He was fortunate enough to get the billboard donated to him again, and we relaunched his campaign. And that brought forward, I think, only like 189 donors at that time. And one of those donors is this woman, Hillary, who's a kindergarten teacher, and stepped forward. She was a match for him, but she couldn't donate at that time because Mark had some medical issues. So she donated into our voucher program. So she donated when she could.
Yep.
She gave Mark a voucher for a kidney. That was 2 years ago. And Mike, you want to hear something really cool? Do you know what happened on Monday, this past Monday?
What happened?
Mark Weiner was at Weill Cornell Medical Center in Manhattan and finally was able to redeem that voucher, and he's got a kidney.
Wow.
I spoke to him this morning, and he's actually getting probably discharged tomorrow.
That is amazing.
So back from 2018, the guy now has been on dialysis for 7 years. And he talked about, and we're jumping around, but he talked about his daughter who's going to be looking at colleges. and he doesn't have to worry about trying to find locations where there's a dialysis center, you know, because he's got to be on dialysis 3 times a week. I think it's like 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours a day, for
3 times
days,
a week.
yeah, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So that's gone, you know, because he's got this this beautiful 20-year-old kidney from a living donor.
Yeah,
you know,
from a living donor, which is amazing to me. And now we step in from your vantage point, where now in 2018 you see this at billboard, and what goes through your mind?
So it started in April of 2018, and there was a police officer who needed a kidney named Tommy Alexander, and I saw that come over our computer screen, and I remember calling my wife saying, "Oh, you know, they're looking for a kidney donor." I didn't know anything about it, but they said call this number. I said, "What do you think?" She's like, "Sure." She's like, "Give me the number. I'll call too." So I called the number, and I finally got somebody at the transplant center, and they asked me a couple of questions, and then I never heard from them. So I just assumed that guy Tommy got a kidney, and that was that. So I just went on with my life. That was April of 2018. And, you know, I think if Mark's story didn't come out in the New York Post, I probably would have never donated. Because there's something about, specifically, I donated as a Good Samaritan donor, so I just basically gave my kidney away, right?
Right.
I just donated, and at the time, I didn't know this. Oh, I mean, I knew it, but I didn't really know much about the National Kidney Registry. I donated my kidney into the National Kidney Registry, which is now the company or organization that I work for. So then that was in April. So 4 months later, that was like my aha moment. So everyone asks someone that donated a kidney to a stranger, why did you do it?
Yeah.
And it's the most difficult question to actually answer and put into words. But for me, the best way that I could describe it is April of 2018, tried to help a cop. It unfortunately didn't work out. I would have just moved on. But something about 4 months later, you know, 46 years old, 4 months later, I've never heard about kidney donation in my life. I don't know anyone that donated a kidney. I didn't know anyone on dialysis. I mean, my grandfather had a little bit of diabetes, but he took a pill for it. So I didn't, you know, I actually joke around saying I don't even know what the kidneys did. I kind of knew they were in your, you know, back over here, but that's about it. But something about that second story, Mark's story, it triggered something. So I attempted to donate to Mark. I was one of those 1,800 people that clicked the link. I get a phone call from the hospital. The procedure is basically they send you an email with some labs. You go to a center. You get some initial lab work done. They did a test to see if I was a match. That took about 2 weeks. And while I was waiting for that result, I just started doing what everybody does, right? You Google. So I started Google living kidney donation. You know, how do you do it? You know, different types of donation. And I learned that you literally could just give the kidney away, right? You literally could just give your kidney to a stranger. I was like, holy mackerel. So they called me and told me that I wasn't a match. You know, I remember that day. And I immediately said, so what about this, you know, me being a non-directed donor or a Good Samaritan donor? Can I still do that? And I remember the woman on the phone, she was like, yeah. She's like, but that's a different pile of paperwork. So she's like, someone will call you right back. Within an hour, I got a phone call from my transplant coordinator. And then, you know, sort of the rest is history. But the interesting fact about, you know, Mark is I went to my lieutenant. He was the person I told who was going to donate my kidney kind of early on. And he's like, you know, you might want to go to the DCPI, Deputy Commissioner of Public Information's office for the police department, and, you know, maybe let them know you're going to do this. It'll help create awareness, right? And it also is good for the police department, right? Because, you know, cops doing something good, and I'm sure, as you know, sometimes police officers don't get such good press.
Yeah.
So the police department said, oh my gosh, absolutely. So they covered my story. The Post covered my story that I was going to donate. Mark sees it and immediately called. I think he called the writer of who wrote the article for the Post and said, you got to put me in touch with this guy. And I went and I donated, and Mark came to the hospital.
Wow.
And, you know, I remember what I love about Mark is he never was, woe is me. You know, like, oh, I had this billboard and I didn't get a kidney out of it. He was so happy that his billboard was able to help someone else. So although he didn't receive a kidney, you know, he didn't receive a voucher at that time, you know, in 2018, it gave him joy knowing that his billboard was able to help someone else. And I remember him saying, he goes, you know, my time will come. Like, one day my time will come. And
it's come. 2023 it came.
And Monday, so when I you know, spoke to him before when he told me he was getting when he got matched through the National Kidney Registry, I was just I almost wanted to cry.
Yeah. I mean, it's so inspiring, and I think for many people, those questions really loom. Is what is the purpose of the kidney, right? Why is it? How is it so crucial and vital to the body? And then also, if it's so crucial and vital to the body, how can I function without one?
You can't.
But you have two.
Yes.
So don't I need both to function?
Mike, you do not need both. Do you know that there are people who, especially if they're a little bit older, when they didn't have all the ultrasounds and stuff, that were born with one kidney and went through their entire life with one kidney, never knowing. Because they were too old and they didn't have that much time. Now, nowadays everything's 3D and all that kind of stuff. So I've spoken to donors who've gotten ruled out because they go for the CAT scan and they see that they only have one kidney.
Yeah, this is the only one.
Yeah, you have to have one. So you only need one to live a normal life. And I mean, if you see me here, I don't know if you quantify me as normal, but I'm living a fairly
kind of normal. But now, so the National Kidney Registry.
Sure.
What is its purpose? What is its mission? And your role as the Chief Strategy Officer? What are the answers to all those questions? And then what can you do to help more people become aware of what goes involved with the kidney surgery, donors, etc. Sure. I was hoping we can really break that down. But first off, I want to start off with the organization itself.
Oh, good, because that's a long list of stuff to cover. So as far as the organization is concerned, it's been around for about 15 years, and it started because Garrett Hill and his wife, Jan Hill, they have a daughter named Samantha, and at the time, she was 10, 11 years old, and she needed a kidney. Garrett has, at the time, no medical experience. He was a businessman, Wharton Business School graduate, brilliant, just really, really sharp, really brilliant guy, had a different kind of business, attempted to donate to his daughter, but failed this thing called the cross match, the final cross match. That's where they put like the blood together and they see if the recipient or the patient's blood will attack, your blood. And he was really frustrated that he couldn't help his daughter in some way, right? So ultimately, a family member donated to her, and thank God today she's part of the company. She's the director of marketing, and but at the time it frustrated me. He's like, we got to be able to solve this problem. Like, I'm a willing donor, but because I wasn't a match, I can't help my daughter. And that's what started the voucher program within the NKR. So at the time, it was called like an advanced donation. So he actually donated his kidney so he could give his daughter a voucher if she should ever need one later in life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the beginning of what the modern day voucher program is. So he's started the National Kidney Registry, nonprofit organization, started one hospital at a time, and next thing we're in 2023, we have 103 transplant centers throughout the United States that are in our network, and donors are walking into those transplant centers every day and getting put into our pool, and then we have patients who are coming in and unfortunately are in a situation where they need a kidney, and we're able to match the donor to the patient or intended recipient.
So on Long Island, where would be a donor center?
On Long Island, Northwell.
In
Manhasset, yeah.
In Manhasset specifically.
Yeah, and there's quite a few in New York. I can't remember all of them, but we have NYU Langone, we have New York Presbyterian Cornell, Montefiore. There's a couple. There's one, I think, upstate.
Okay.
There's 103. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's quite all right. I don't need you to remember all of them.
No, but Northwell on Long Island.
Okay. And now with how someone wants to, let's start with the kidneys themselves, right? What is the very purpose of the kidney?
Yeah, well, the kidney produces urine. So when you go to the bathroom and you pee out that beautiful yellow, clear liquid, that comes from your kidneys. The kidneys detoxify or take all the they like filter all those toxins out, right?
It expels the waste.
Right. So if your kidneys aren't functioning, your body's not expelling the waste. And if it drops below, or when you get to like 20% or below, now you need a transplant. And then as it keeps going down, you potentially, like Mark, has to be put on dialysis. And what dialysis is, you get hooked up to this machine, and it literally sucks all the blood out of your body, goes in through the machine, cleans it out, and sticks it back in.
Yeah.
And it does that for 8 hours. And it, I did an interview one time, and I said that dialysis is just a Band-Aid. I said, but it's it's really a death sentence. And I remember the guy going, "Do you really want to say that? Like, do you want to say that dialysis is a death sentence?" And the answer is, yeah, because like the average person's only living about 5 or so years,
afterwards.
On dialysis, because it affects the rest of the body.
It's draining.
So
I mean, it really is.
Draining.
I mean, I've met so many people, many friends of mine, who have been on dialysis in the past, and it really takes a toll on them. You see it. And
although the organ procurement organizations provide that's for deceased organs, a great service, it's not enough. So here in New York, if you're waiting for a kidney, it's estimated to be 7 to 10 years.
7 to 10 years for a kidney
in New York. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and we used to be worst, and I think Jersey now beat us out for being last, and then we're second to last, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh man, why is that? Why? What makes us second to last? Is it just because the amount of donors?
Yeah, we need more organs than we have donors, right? So for the deceased organ donation, it's that little heart that's on your driver's license when you go to renew your license. They say, "Do you want to be an organ donor?" You check off, yes or no, and we don't have enough those people checking off yes. I checked off yes. I mean,
of course.
I'm not going to be around anymore, so if I can help somebody, when I pass away, that would be great.
What's the number of people nationwide that need a kidney?
Sure. I think the count as of today is about 98,000 that need a kidney. There's about it's probably about 105 or 6,000 people that need an organ. Could be
nationwide or in New York?
That's the whole country.
Nationwide.
98,000 is the United States.
Wow, and that's impressive. And
but we only have in the United States about 5,800 to 6,000 people who ultimately donate
per year.
Yeah, but someone's dying, right now listening to this broadcast. So 13 people die a day on the list waiting for a kidney. And that's just the list. That's the people who are sick enough to actually be listed. There are 600,000 people on dialysis.
Wow.
I'm sure if you asked any one of those people on dialysis, would you take a living donor kidney? I'm sure they would say absolutely yes. But you have to, the system's all screwed up. So you need to be really sick. You have to wait to get really sick.
Does it have to be less than that 20% in order to qualify for that list?
You have to have 20% or less in order to be listed.
Of functionality.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then, but dialysis, when do you get put on dialysis?
It has to.
Is that like at 40% or 30%?
No, it's under the 20%. But it has to do with some certain other levels that
But why would people qualify? If everyone is under that 20% functioning, why aren't all 600,000 of them on that list?
So those 600,000 they're on dialysis, but they're not able to be put onto the list. I'm not.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Why aren't all those people on?
Yeah,
the list?
I wonder.
I know there's a strict criteria for people to be put on the deceased donor list.
I wonder if it must be solely isolated to the need for the kidney as opposed to other organs. If there's additional organs that might need, I don't know.
That's a good question.
I was very curious about that. I was just wondering.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, just check that out. Yeah, but I think that is something that for me is a matter of messaging in the sense of many people they're concerned about what's entailed with donating a kidney. You were talking about it yourself in terms of the surgery, just obviously the invasive surgery itself, removing an organ, then repairing the skin through scars, and then recovery from there.
You're making it sound like it's a really tough thing.
Well, these are the concerns, and I want to talk to you about what was it like for you, and then how was the recovery for you? How was the surgery? How was all that?
So I have to be very careful. So I'm going to start by saying you're going in for an elective surgery.
Yes.
Right. So there's no, mincing of words. You're going in for an elective surgery. You're going in for a surgery you don't need.
Correct.
Right. But, my experience, and most donors have a great experience, have a really good experience. So the process is, I almost don't want to say the word easy, but it's not really that difficult. So at the transplant center I went to, I love this. I only showed up 3 times. I showed up for a full day of testing, 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like a job. And that was everything. They took 28 vials of blood, which I fainted when they did that because I don't like my blood taken.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. No one told me it was going to be that many vials.
Did you
of
not
blood.
eat a cookie or something before that?
No, I didn't. I took the train into the city. I was sitting there and I was watching her take the vials out and put them on the table.
Oh, you're like, that's a lot of vials.
I was like, ooh, that's 15. I'm like, that's 25. And then she says, oh, I forgot these last 3, 28. So she sticks the needle in, and I was fine. And then she got to like vial number 9, and I said, I'm going down. She's like, what? I said, no, I'm going to faint. I said, I'm getting lightheaded. She goes, no, you can't faint. I said, I'm going down. So she took the needle out, and I wake up on a gurney. You know?
Oh, no way.
No, yeah, I was out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, I texted my wife. She's like, you're so embarrassing. I said,
what a rookie.
Yeah, what a rookie. So she goes, there's a big red X on your file. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this guy, no way. How's he going to donate his kidney? But so I said, I guess I'll have to, come back another day, They said, no, you're laying down. I'm going to take the rest of the blood. So anyway, it's a full day of testing, you do a CAT scan, they do a X-ray, you meet a nephrologist, you meet the surgeon, a social worker. Because I was a non-directed donor, they actually have you see a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
I passed that somehow. So,
Somehow.
Yeah, somehow. But, just to make sure that, you're going in for surgery you don't need, right? Is anyone coercing you? Is someone offering you money?
Right.
Are you looking for fame, right? What's the motivation? Like, maybe
Wow.
if I do this, I can, sell my story or something. There's crazy.
Wow, I
Yeah.
would never even thought about that.
They just want to make sure you're doing it because you want to do it
For the right reason.
For the right reason. So all that testing happened in one day. Then you get the results back, which mine were good. I went back a second time, which is about a week before my donation, and that was for some final blood work done. And then the third time I showed up at the hospital, they took the kidney out. Cornell, specifically does a single incision laparoscopic surgery. So they go in at
I
the
have
belly.
no idea what that means, laparoscopic.
They don't cut you all the way open like the old school days. They used to
Right.
cut like an L and flip the skin over. It goes in right through the belly button. They do a little incision, and then they open up they're like a hole,
Yep.
and then they do everything in there. Surgery was like under 2 hours. I was out of the hospital. I spent 2 nights in the hospital. That woman I told you about, Hillary, who was the voucher donor
Yeah.
for Mark, 1 night. She donates her kidney 5:30 in the morning. She's out the next day at like noon.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she sent me a picture from the hallway.
Now you're a double rookie.
I'm like, I
Man,
fainted.
fainted,
2
stayed
days in
2
the
days,
hospital.
twice as long.
Yeah.
Man.
But it's
Where's the 3 strikes, Mikey? Where's the 3 strikes coming?
it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. Here we go.
But the recovery is exactly what they said. They fill your cavity with gas, and the gas it's not like a balloon, so you can't they don't squeeze your stomach and all the gas gets out. So they sew you up, and the gas is still in your body, and it rises, and it goes to your shoulders. So that's the real pain that I had was this pain in my shoulders.
Does it naturally expel over time?
You got to
okay.
walk. The more you walk, the
Yeah.
more you get rid of the gas.
Okay.
So they make you walk that night. They tried getting me to walk. I walked a little bit. The next day you walk a little bit more. But I went home. You walk half a block, and then the next half. And next thing you know, you're walking around the block. But the recovery is really, man. I mean, if you have a desk job, you can go back, 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks.
Right.
A buddy of mine, Steve Wilson, is an accountant, and he was, I think, with a week and a half or so, he was on his laptop and his
able to still work.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with the work from home model, with many people being able to do Zoom calls and emails
Yeah.
and phone calls rather than having to be in the office.
Yeah.
That could also allow them to be back at work, because some of the major concerns is those who do have to be at work.
Yep.
And how does the National Kidney Registry work with those who maybe want to donate,
Sure.
but then work-wise they might not be able to, or maybe family-wise responsibilities? Sure. How does the organization work with that? So
one of the things that long before I came along, Garrett, our CEO, wanted to do was to remove disincentives for people to donate.
Right.
So what's the number one thing? I speak to a lot of potential donors is lost wages.
Yeah.
So we have a program that's called Donor Shield. And what that does is that supports and protects donors. And one of the protections is lost wage reimbursement. So
let me just interrupt real quick too.
Sure.
The cost of that surgery and all any ancillary, was that all covered as well?
That's covered by the recipient's insurance. So the
Excellent.
donor pays, as far as the medical costs, the donor pays $0. But where the donor could incur costs is with travel, for instance, right?
Okay.
So if you happen to be out of state and you want to donate to someone and you decide that you want to donate at their hospital in this other state, you got airfare, you have maybe a hotel or stuff like that. So that's not covered by the recipient's insurance.
Does NKR work with that?
So that's where the Donor Shield comes in.
Oh,
so
that's what I'm saying. Part of not just lost wages. Then it would also be travel.
So we do lost wage reimbursement, travel and lodging reimbursement. We're going to be adding dependent care for adults and children. We have legal services if it should be needed. The other big one, but I want to get back to lost wage and travel in a second. But the other big one is, although it's rare, but we have a complication coverage.
Okay.
So if someone was to have a complication that's related to the donation, and the insurance company decided not to cover, then we got them.
Great.
And
so any side effects that may occur, albeit very slim, but if
hernia
they do
is
occur,
like the biggest one. So
right.
you're not supposed to lift more than in my hospital. They told me more than 20 pounds for 6 weeks. But week 2, maybe week 2.5, you're like, I feel pretty good. Let me go take the garbage out. Next thing you know, you pick up the garbage can and now you cause a hernia. That's like, in my experience, that's the number one complication that a donor has, which you could have if you had your appendix taken out. It's the same thing. Yeah?
Same thing. Of course, after surgery, you have to always be careful.
Right. So
going back to lost wages now.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest barriers is, well, how can I take off 3 weeks of work or whatever the case is? My job's not going to, pay me. So we reimburse up to $2,000 a week for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Typically, depending on what kind of job you have, everyone gets the 2 weeks, no problem. Week 3 and 4, if the transplant center, the nurse deems it to be appropriate, they just basically click a button and you get week 3 and 4. And then if you need week 5 and 6, which, if you're like a UPS worker or maybe someone that's got to, lift something, then a doctor signs off on that and no big deal. So you get up to 6 weeks, $2,000 a week for 6 weeks.
Wow. Now, is that taxable or is that untaxed? You get
a 1099. Yeah.
You get a 1099 with that. Okay.
But the cool part about that is there's another program out there that the government has called NALDAC, NLDAC, which is it's a decent program, but the problem is it's means tested off of the recipient, off of the patient.
What does that mean?
So if the patient makes over a certain income, then the donor can't use those benefits. So ours, Donor Shield, we don't have that. It doesn't matter what the recipient makes. If they make a lot of money, make a little bit amount of money, we're there to protect the donor. So as long as you could provide, a W-2 or, pay stub, $2,000 a week for up to 6 weeks. And then the next one that most people utilize is the travel and lodging. And that's $5,000, up to $5,000. And what could that be? If you had to get on an airplane,
right, of course,
stay in a hotel, car rental, things like that.
And what about? I would also think the dependent care would be.
Yeah, so that's new. So we don't offer that yet. This is like a Mike LiPetri exclusive.
Ooh.
Starting July 1st, we're going to offer dependent care. So under the travel and lodging, the $5,000 that we have for travel and lodging, we're going to add dependent care into that. So
you hear that on Mike LiPetri show, July 1st.
LiPetri exclusive.
Exclusive.
I saved that right for today.
That's right. July 1st is going to be rolling that out. How much would that be?
So
provided?
it falls under the $5,000 that we have allocated for travel and lodging. We're just going to add dependent care to that. So
okay, so it fall under that per.
Yeah. So if someone uses whatever $2,000 for child care and
for the month or whatever.
Yeah, and they need $3,000 for travel and lodging, then that's the $5,000.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's going to be excellent to see because many people, that's many of their concerns that were that I've heard at least in the past, and I really wanted to bring this up to just shed some light on how to alleviate a lot of those concerns and lessen the blow, so that more people who really have that same inspiration that you had and you feel, and they want to give back, I want that to I don't want any barriers to stay in the way.
Neither do we. And New York State, we have to be in a really great state. So New York State has a policy. If you donate an organ, a living organ, liver, kidney, you get 30 days paid leave, 30 work days paid leave. Excuse me. If you do bone marrow, it's 7 days. And I was telling you before you pressed go or start, my wife donated a portion of her liver to a work colleague, and she's she works for a judge out in Suffolk County, and one of the ADAs needed a liver. She got 30 days paid leave. They follow the same policy. The courts follow the same policy as the state. So there was no worry about her paycheck. It was there, and there's not a lot of states that do that. Federal government has the same policy though. The feds, same thing, 30 days for a living.
Any income restrictions on that as well with the state?
Nope.
So any person now, if they donate, they fall into the 30-day bracket for New York State. So
I think the way the paperwork works, you fill out the paperwork, and I guess the organization you work for submits it.
Usually that's how it works. And also with paid family leave, there's a percentage. It's not the full income, is it?
For her she got her full.
She got full check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, how does that work then in tandem with Donor Shield?
So you can't double dip.
Right.
That's a no. So she couldn't apply for if she donated a liver. But
if it was
a kidney, that's illegal. You can't double dip. But the interesting thing is you can use both programs. So a lot of people don't know that. So you could use NALDAC, and then you can also use Donor Shield, as long as you don't double dip.
Right. So hypothetically, if you're making $5,000 a month, $2,000 would come from Donor Shield, and the other $3,000.
It's possible.
Yeah, if it does. I mean, but again, if the paid family. Now, if there's any questions, or if someone wants to, but wants to kind of get all their ducks in a row, can they reach out to you? Can they talk to? Who can they speak to?
Anybody can reach out to me anytime they want. But as far as like specifics for the financials, it would be your HR department.
Okay.
That as far as what your your company allows. But I'm on Facebook and Twitter
Facebook,
and
Instagram, Twitter, social media.
Instagram.
Yeah. So now someone wants to donate.
Sure.
How do they go? What's the first step? Who can they talk to? Can they talk to you? Can they reach out?
They could talk to me, of course.
So how do they find you? Where do they go?
But what I would recommend is you could go to our website, which is nkr.org is the easiest way to we have all over kidneyregistry.org, National Kidney Registry, but nkr.org. I used to be the president of the National Kidney Donation Organization, which is nkdo.org. That's a great resource for living donors. And at either one of these sites, if you're interested in being a living donor, there's a button that says, I'm considering being a living kidney donor. You fill out some basic questions. But the really cool thing is that we have this donor mentoring program that's in place. And what does that mean? That means if you want to speak to someone just like me, who likes to talk a lot, who happens to donate their kidney, you automatically get connected. There's no charge or anything like that. And, that person's there to not offer medical advice, but to offer donation advice, right? How the process was for them. How did they feel during the recovery? If you have any questions, what should I bring to the hospital? A couple people I spoke to before I donated told me, bring a pillow. I'm like, a little pillow? Like, why would I bring a little pillow? Well, because when you're on that ride home from the city to Long Island, you could put the pillow on the incision spot when you have your seatbelt on, and it doesn't press against it. I'm like, I wouldn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
Then of course, one person said, make sure you get stool softener because the hospital doesn't give it to you. Like her hospital, they didn't give it to her, and she made her husband go to the drugstore and get stool softener because you want to be able to go because any kind of pressure on that stomach,
it's all magnified.
Exactly.
Yeah, people don't even realize it. But I think, Mike, you have had such an inspirational story, and I really appreciate your time. This has been wonderful to hear from you, to chat with you, to learn all about just what you've gone through, your adventure, and how you've saved lives, both directly with directly both ways with the NYPD. And then on top of it now as a kidney donor, it's really tremendous and amazing. And I wanted just to thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. But listen, you're doing it too. Although I think you might have 2 kidneys, so I'm going to try and get one out of you before I leave today. But
like this is what needs to happen. People ask me, why don't more people donate, right? So I told you about 6,000 people donate a year. Of that, only about 350 to 400 donate to strangers. Think about that, right?
It's crazy.
There's 299 million people in this United States that are over the age of 21, and only 350 donate their kidney to a stranger. The others are, have some connection to the person. So why is that number so low? It's because more people aren't talking about it. The government's not putting money towards
awareness and bringing it out.
PSAs.
Yep.
So people literally just don't know that they could do it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you inviting me
this is my goal, my friend, is putting it out there, letting people know, and that they could hopefully, even if it's one person that feels inspired by this, but save someone's life. So thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Appreciate it.